Hey everybody, Attorney Somm here. Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why you should not worry about collecting verticals. When I first started wine collecting, I frequently envisioned that I would have numerous tastings where I would provide 5 to 6 consecutive vintages for a particular producer, and then my friends and I would all sit around and compare each different vintage and enjoy these vertical tastings. Looking back on it, however, that simply has not happened. When I have had vertical tastings, it's typically been a situation where a retailer or the wine club where I'm a member has organized it and provided the wines, and I've just paid a fee to participate. I think that's true for at least 5 reasons. First, typically when we have wine tasting groups, we have each person bring a bottle or two around a particular theme. We don't usually have just one person responsible for bringing all the wines in a particular tasting. Second, if we do a vertical tasting, we're not really concerned about having consecutive vintages. For example, we had a Pichon Lalande dinner where everyone took a different vintage of Pichon Lalande. We had maybe 12 or 13 bottles by the end of the night, and they ranged from the 1970s all the way to probably 2009 or 10 or so. And there were numerous gaps in these vintages, but no one cared about that at all. It was more important to just have a diverse representation and for everyone to just have fun with it. Third, if you ever want to sell your collection, those off vintages are going to be much harder to sell, and you may end up being stuck with them and not able to sell them at all. I have a friend recently who sold his collection, and the big obstacle with his collection was that he had a number of off-vintage Bordeaux in that collection, which made it difficult for people who are going to buy that collection to purchase those wines. That's true because they simply weren't confident that they could resell them for what they were worth or what the current prices were in the secondary market. Fourth, we found in our tasting groups that it's much easier to do a horizontal tasting than it is to do a vertical tasting. And by this I mean that typically it's easier for my friends and I to find a particular night that works for a few of us and center a tasting around a particular vintage, because a lot of people will have a wine from a certain vintage. It's far more difficult, however, to find a number of people who are not only available on a certain date, but have wine from one particular producer and who have wine from different vintages from that same producer. So it's just much easier to do horizontal tastings. Lastly, and perhaps most significantly, thinking back on it, I'd wish that I'd devoted more of my resources to the best vintages and just loading up on top vintages rather than worrying about verticals. A prime example of this is my Dom Pérignon collection. When I first started out, I was obsessed with getting as many Dom Pérignon vintages as I could and had all the vintages that were released back to 1982 or so, as well as a few before that. What I quickly found out, however, is that the 92 and the 93 vintages needed to be consumed almost immediately, and while they were fine, I would have been much better off purchasing a vintage like 2002, which was about the same amount at that point in time. The 2002 vintage is far more age-worthy and collectible and will ultimately be a far better wine. In the meantime, the 92s and the 93s are long gone, and those are of course a gap in my collection anyway, so I shouldn't have spent so much time obsessing with that in the past. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know in the comments below, and please be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next one. Until then, drink well.